So the opinion article I read was called So Much More Than a Language, How Indianapolis Immersion Schools Prepare Students by Sorell Grow, published on March 3rd, 2020. So the argument presented in the article, it was a question of value because, well, the principal argument was that immersing kids in dual language immersion schools at a young age will help them in the future with career opportunities and whatnot. So it was essentially arguing that language immersion schools are good. So it's making a judgment of value. And then the problem being addressed is a lack of linguistic and cultural understanding among children and adults alike, I suppose, because exposing them to novel languages at a young age helps them in the future, in their adult life. So the cause of the problem was essentially not being exposed to novel languages at a young age, because that places them at a competitive disadvantage in the job market and, or, if they should choose to look for a career when they grow up. And then the effect of the problem, I guess I kind of just said that. So the effect of not being exposed to foreign languages at a young age is that they lack intellectual growth and competitive advantage in the job market later on. The solution would be to offer language immersion schools for elementary school age kids. And what caused the solution to be proposed, that's kind of similar. It's individuals recognize that in the past kids have lacked language immersion, which thereby places them at a competitive disadvantage. So there was a need for fluency in other languages that was recognized to be competitive in the job market, but also just a generally more culturally aware and accepting individual. So the effect of the solution is, these answers are all pretty similar. So by proposing this, intellectual growth, respect for cultures and other languages, increased job opportunities would all be provided to these students and would serve them for life, essentially. Did the author include a call to action? Not particularly, just because the audience wasn't really implored to do anything, per se, with the information. They were just, since the article was more informative in nature, granted there was an element of persuasion, but the article was more imploring the audience to believe that language immersion schools are good. So they aren't really asked to do anything with that. They're just persuaded to recognize that. And then, do I feel persuaded? Sort of. I've always seen the value in learning foreign language. After all, that's what I'm studying here at Purdue. So I see the value in it. So, it's kind of my area. The article does provide some great points for some great motives for learning one or two other languages, gives students a competitive advantage in the job market, allows for growth intellectually. However, the end of the article really shuts down the whole idea of language immersion schools in particular for me, because the average tuition for those types of programs for like a kindergartner would be like $20,000 a year. That's like in-state tuition, so that's a bit crazy. So I think the end of it they kind of lost me at the end. I think if you want to expose children to a foreign language at a young age, there are several other more cost-effective ways to do that than this approach. So that was kind of ridiculous. Other than that, it was pretty convincing, but then again, I already see the value in learning foreign language, so it wasn't very hard to persuade me because I would be an audience member who, already agrees with what the article is saying. So I'd already be receptive to it. But anyway. And then the last question is, did the journalists successfully meet the expectations of their role? For the most part, yes. Sorell Grow did, for the most part, meet her expectations. The article was a little bit redundant, and I felt like I recognized that other audience members who are not as passionate about language as I am would easily get bored by it just because it's very repetitive and monotonous. I felt like I was reading the same thing over and over again. Other than that, the benefits of learning and being exposed to other languages at a young age the benefits were conveyed pretty well. and there were some pretty compelling arguments made, and as referenced earlier, but yeah, for the most part, yes.